Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Coventry Sphinx podcast. I'm Chris Nee, and in this episode I'll be talking to Shaun Thomas, one of our joint managers. Sphinx have played a couple of games since the easing of lockdown, friendlies against Coventry Rangers and FC Stratford, but we're by no means back to normal. So I wanted to focus not on the matches themselves, but on the challenges faced by Shaun and by John Woodward as non-league managers navigating a spring and summer like no other. So here's me, with Shaun, after our latest friendly. I'm delighted to be joined by Shaun after 4 long months as we emerge slowly after lockdown, and although we've been playing some friendlies, I want to look under the bonnet a little bit. How much contact have you and John had with the players during the lockdown phase?
Very similar to the first lockdown, actually, where there's a little bit of a flurry of contact that goes into the first few weeks because you're still in that sort of rhythm and routine of talking football, thinking football. It then died off for a little bit, and we were waiting on government updates, and I think over the last maybe 4 to 5 weeks that starts to ramp up a little bit more, but trying not to, what we did the first time around, we tried to avoid it this time, is just to try and get too much wrapped up into we must keep in contact, and just try and keep it as natural as possible, really. So the players keep in contact more often than what we do, and we just have a little bit of a light touch every couple of weeks.
What form does that take? Are you just getting in contact on WhatsApp? Are you having Zoom chats as the rest of the world has been having?
Really honestly, Chris, what I tried to do maybe in February time is on my way home from work, I was trying to catch maybe 2 or 3 people each time, seeing how they are, making sure that it's a genuine offer if they do need anything. As a football team, we want to try and make sure that they're not only all right as a player but all right individually as well. Yeah, so individual chats and then just a very generic WhatsApp updates, really.
I know some managers in the professional game have been able to use the first lockdown in particular to go back to the drawing board tactically, but as well as their coaching development. We've spoken a bit about the difficulties in working on tactics in a semi-professional environment and an amateur environment below us as well. Have you been able to take a step back?
Yes, so I genuinely truly believe in constant learning. So football isn't my day job. I try to apply some things that I learn in my day job to football, such as leadership and how to create teams and things like that. So I've been thinking about that a lot. I tried to get away and do some talent ID, some scouting qualifications, just to keep myself ticking over, because football really is my main passion. So it's difficult to see yourself as a coach, but then the definition of the coach can be quite varied. So in general, at the moment, what we've been doing is trying to manage a group of people to make sure that when we do start again in August, we're at our very best.
Have you been in contact with other managers during the winter?
I have, but only very recently. So we have little updates. We've had a couple of approaches for our players, and the managers that have made those approaches have done it the right way and just contacted us, and vice versa, really. So we, again, I try in a weird way, and I'm going to say this, I don't know if it will sound right, but I try and stay away from football when I'm not involved in it. So I love non-league, but I try and not get caught up in social media with my opinion of football and things like that, because I just think it's a pretty futile exercise, really. So lockdown for me was more about just enjoying time with family, a bit of personal development, and feeling refreshed, actually.
How much time have you had with the players since you've been able to return to training?
2 training sessions, 2 hours in total, plus the 2 games. And that's it. So the rationale, the remit of those 2 games was to have an end point to the season. We've lost 2 seasons to the lockdowns and coronavirus, so we just wanted to catch up as a group, and the football comes secondary to that almost. So we've had we've done a fortnight, and that's us.
It's a bit of a strange question for strange times, but to what extent do you at the moment know who your players are?
Good question. I sit here comfortably thinking I know who has finished the season with us. What might happen over the next 6 weeks to 2 months might change that. We have, and a lot of clubs will face it, and it's just a sliding scale of big fish, little fish in football. So we've had really positive performances by some of our lads, and that means that they attract interest. So we are already planning for the worst case scenario, but also we're trying our utmost to keep those players and add some quality to the squad as well.
How much are you as a coaching team thinking towards next season now? That's where the vision will be, but is there much planning going on in terms of being ready for August?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. So I think even because we knew we weren't coming back to the season, everything turns around to August, and you try not to get caught up in the whole merry-go-round of non-league, but it's happening now. It will continue to ramp up over the next few months. But yeah, all our focus is for that August the 7th at the moment.
We've played those couple of games. We've played Coventry Rangers and FC Stratford. Last week, was a bit of a different kettle of fish. We're quite warm. First game back for everybody, and I think you could tell. But we've got a decent relationship with the Rangers set up and have played them a couple of times now since they've been formed. And then we played the first home post-season friendly or whatever they're called today. Mixed results, but do you feel like you get what you want out of those friendlies? Because they're not even pre-season friendlies, these games. They serve a very different purpose.
We did. So everything's just an opportunity for lads to get together. So that's generally the outset. So we don't get caught up on the results necessarily. So this isn't me sitting here saying in pre-season that winning is the be-all and end-all. It wasn't. It was about, if you go outside now, there's 20 lads out there having a beer. We're going to say goodbye to each other for a couple of weeks. Nothing more dramatic than that. But it was just that touch base and seeing people for the first time after a lockdown. The results, so going into it, the lads that have been playing, so we tried to say to the lads upstairs that when you pull on a Sphinx shirt, you've got to be a good player. You've got to be a good player mentally, physically, technically. And some of the results have been mixed, actually, and some of the performances have been mixed. And all it does is sort of guide you towards your decisions when you get towards August. And that's all it is. It's a little bit of an exercise of understanding under what circumstances do certain players play well, what circumstances or positions do certain players not adapt to, where are our strengths and where are our areas for development.
It's been a particularly difficult time for young lads, and I think I forget that as a bloke in my 30s that, you know, we have our own challenges, but actually there's a bit of youth being lost here as well. So we've had a lot of players in our first team squad from our youth team over the last couple of seasons. You've given playing time over the last couple of games to Jamie Draper, Harvey Billing, Zach Tellin, Jude O'Connor, Harry Wilson.
Cameron Welsh.
Cam Welsh came on today. All of them featured before lockdown as well. Should we expect to see those players developing in the Sphinx side next season, but also any others coming through from the youth team? Is that something you still want to be part of the plan?
Yeah. So we've got mobility to add into that. So when you look at it, it is, I would say, a really unique situation where we've got, and to be fair, there's lads in the youth team as well who we haven't used, who are still very good players. So we've got a really unique situation where you've got maybe 7 or 8 lads who you could genuinely, hand on heart, say I've got the ability to play consistently for the Sphinx first team next year. As the managers, you've got to really understand and use your experience of the league to know that the league is a slog, and if you throw all those lads in at the same time, they could find it tougher than what they might think. They've got the innocence of youth at the minute where they've got all the confidence in the world, but when it starts to go wrong, it's where do you draw on that experience of when it starts to go wrong? How do you stop a little bit of a losing streak or something like that? So we've said to all the lads, and it's a genuine statement to all of the lads, that we want everyone back here pre-season, and if you're good enough, you'll play, regardless of age. But what you will do is we'll guide you along the way. If you are an 18-year-old playing your first full year of senior football, you can't expect it to go perfect all of the time. And so yeah, we expect them all to be back in pre-season. And I'm sure a lot of them will feature heavily next year.
We happen to have played a lot of the lads who were first-year youth players as well. So a lot of them still got youth football as part of their development at the moment. What difference in expectation do you have now of the players who are still playing in the youth team this season, but know that they won't be?
It's really difficult. So they're in that transition where they are used to being the strongest, the quickest, the most technical, on the ball, technically minded players at their level, and they're a good setup in the Midlands sort of youth system. They would have won that Premier League last year, or this year, I should say, if it wasn't curtailed. What they then do is you step up into a remit, and I always tell this story. So Jamie Draper went and played for GMP last year, and he come up against Kyle Perry, who was playing for Studley, and also Harvey Smith, who's playing for us today. Kyle Perry has played in the Conference North, and he went to Kettering after that. And Jamie says to me, like, yeah, that was a big old battle. He won't remember me, but I'll remember him. And I'll say to Jamie that, well, in 10 years' time, you're going to be that big centre-half playing against some of the young whippersnapper coming through, and then you stamp your mark because you would have had that experience and sort of open up the eyes of what men's football can be. So the expectation on them boys, and we spoke to them individually, is that they come back in pre-season. They don't come back unfit to get fit. They come back fit to get match fit, and they just grow into their bodies a little bit, and that happens naturally. You can't force yourself to turn into a man over pre-season, don't get me wrong, but just to start developing that man strength, that man fitness, and their body can withstand men's football, I guess.
You've mentioned him already. Before the lockdown, we added to our Smith collection Roy and Harvey, and never really got a chance to have a proper look at him. We have now started to have a quick look at him. What can you tell us about him?
Really, really good lad. Really down to earth, sort of like proper Brummie accent on him. He is quite an athletic, lives on the seat of his pants sort of striker, where he's only ever a tackle away from either giving a foul away or winning a tackle. We're quite excited by him in that he is raw and he adds a bit of a different dimension. And we're, as I said, the future planning for our team is a young lad who wants to play as high as he can, and whether or not that's with the Sphinx or we're a stepping stone in terms of his development, that's to be seen. But we're hoping that we get good lads here who propel us up the league, and then we have that fight in our hands to keep them the next season.
We've had a few players who are working, quite rightly, because to be clear, no one's getting paid at the moment. Have you had conversations with them about their sort of return to football and return to fitness as well, and their expectations?
Yeah, and I think that's what the opportunity to lads that came about today is because we had 8 lads who, for all 9 lads actually, if you include a couple of others who are doing some bits outside of working, who are frontline first team players. And to be successful, you need to switch on to football again. And what we said to them is that, look, we're realistic. We're a football team at Step 5 who are understanding of players and families and things like that. If you've got work on a Saturday because we've just come out of lockdown, you go to work and you earn your money because people have to pay the bills. The expectation though is when we come to the season is that you get your expenses, but also you commit to that football fully, because no one wants to be mediocre.
What does the calendar look like for now? Are we done with friendlies for the rest of this season, and then we have a normal break, a normal pre-season, then normal friendlies, I guess?
Yes, so we're done now. So we were, in theory, we've got a game next week, but because we've got the youth team playing Friday night, we've got significant unavailability. We've had Harvey Billing pull up with a calf strain today. We've got a couple of other walking wounded. Even though we're carrying a squad of about 22, it would look like we'd have about 8 people. So me and John don't want to put our boots on. So we're going to call it a day. I think we're going to rest up for maybe 5 to 6 weeks and come back in the 1st to 2nd week of June. That gives you about 50 to 55 days before we hit the first game. Come back twice a week with some friendlies thrown in, good quality friendlies that build up to so you're match ready. And yeah, so it'll be sometime 2nd week in June.
Have you got an eye on those friendlies already?
Yeah, so the only friendly we've got booked in at the moment is we've got Bedworth on July the 31st, and that's just continuing a little bit of a tradition. And then we have got some others in the pipeline. We're going to try and, I think as a club, without sounding like we're anything better than what we are, we always commit to doing a couple of local friendlies to try and promote the local teams, to give them the opportunity to come and play and give themselves a shot at an established side in the city. And then we'll go out and look to test ourselves away from home, because there's, I don't know if you know, but quite a lot of groundwork going on. So I think we're going to be away from home a lot of the time.
I don't expect you to specify them, but are there particular areas of the team that you think need strengthening over the summer?
I'll be really honest with you, Chris, that yes, I think we need, in key areas, I think we needed a bit more diversity. So when you look at some of our players, they are more matched and they're very similar in their nature. So we're looking to add a little bit of a different threat up front. We're looking to add a little bit of a more senior lad in central midfield to complement the lads that are in there. And then also, depending on what happens with a couple of other lads, we might need to replace them. So dependent on what they do might then have a knock-on effect. But we're certainly looking to add 2 or 3 in the central areas.
We'll finish by looking ahead all the way to August, then kicking off, let's say, the FA Cup game. What has to happen in the summer for you to go into that game thinking, I'm satisfied with the last few months?
I think we get a couple of bodies in the door who are good quality. I think we retain the players that we want to retain. I think then we have a pre-season where we are together as a club. We have got to be fit before we arrive. We've got to then use 6 weeks to get really match fit, so we're not building that fitness during it, so we're still 1 week away and we're still not sure who our best 11 is, who's fit, who's carrying not. It just needs to run a bit smoother than what it did last year. What I will say, I don't know how many of the players listen to this, what I will say is that we'll be ready, and also the fans that listen to this, but we'll be ready. We're trying not to get too far caught up in the whole rigmarole of non-league, and it can feel like you're missing out, you're not doing the right thing. None of us are experts, we're just trying to do the right thing for our club, so we'll be ready. Players just need to relax and enjoy the experience, and then come August the 7th, that first game, what a game to come back to, because it can be disaster, it can be an amazing experience in the first game back, so we shall see.
Thanks to Shaun for this week's chat. As we've just learned, that's about it for this season, but I'll be trying to chat with some of the people who keep our club moving as we work through a challenging summer. So I'll be back sometime for another episode of the Coventry Sphinx podcast. See you then.